The subject of this documentary series seemed like a bright, good-looking young man with a promising future ahead of him. One of countless young men caught up in the savagery of the Pacific War. The diary which makes up the bulk of this story was written by him, and while it shows an often overlooked part of the war, it also shows the dark, gradual transformation of a seemingly normal young man into a predator. On May 19, 1921, Robert William Groft was born to Elmer and Nettie Groft in New Cumberland, Pennsylvania. Elmer, known as Whitey to his friends, worked in a bakery, and he lived with his father William and mother Ellen at 1050 Cameron Street in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. William was a veteran conductor on the Reading Railway, where he ran freight in the local yards, and he lived happily with his wife, oldest daughter Ellen, and his son's family until May 9, 1924. It was on that day that William suffered a heart attack and collapsed at the controls of his steam engine. He was rushed home, and a doctor was called, but William died soon after, and Robert lost his grandfather. In September of 1928, Robert started attending classes at the John Harris School, and it was here that the first signs of trouble appeared. 8-year-old Robert became obsessed with a fellow classmate, so much so that a family member wrote jokingly on the back of a class photo that Robert Groft's girlie is in the 3rd row and the 2nd person. Her name is Anna Bess. Someone later added, "And he loves her," to this inscription. They also wrote, "Robert Groft, I love you," on the front in pencil, with an arrow pointing right at Anna Bess. Did Robert make these strange additions later in life? Robert became an avid photographer as he entered his teenage years, and he enjoyed going to the movies. His home life seemed a happy one, and the family often took vacations together. In 1936, Robert started classes at William Penn High School, and it was here that he met fellow classmate Kenneth F. Pryor. They soon became best friends, and when Robert went on a family vacation to New York City in 1938, he invited Ken to come along. They stayed with Robert's aunt and uncle, the Kaufmans, in an apartment above a block of stores. And this small group of vacationers drove about the city in Whitey's car, often stopping to refill the leaky radiator while Ken supervised. They traveled on a ferry to Coney Island and made sure to take a ride on the Cyclone. They also stopped on the way for a few novelty photos. Sometime in 1939, Robert stopped going to William Penn High, and by July he was working as an elevator operator. His reasons for not finishing high school are unknown. In August of 1940, Robert and his parents traveled to the New York World's Fair, where they visited the French, Italian, and Russian pavilions, among many others, and he didn't waste any time in putting his camera to good use. Robert left his job as an elevator operator in March of 1941, and he went to work as a carpenter's helper in Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania, until January of 1942. That's when he got a job at the Middleton Air Corps Depot as a general mechanics helper. Middleton was a maintenance facility that overhauled B-24 bombers, and a large part of its workforce was comprised of civilians. During his time at Middleton, Robert completed a 3-month course in reading aircraft blueprints, and when he enlisted in the Army on August 1, 1942, Robert was assured that since he possessed special skills and already worked for the Army, he would be placed in a similar position to the one he held in civilian life. So it must have been a big shock for Private Robert Groft to learn that he was being assigned to the Quartermaster Corps, and on August 5, 1942, he arrived at Camp Lee in Richmond, Virginia. Saturday, August 8, 1942. Arose at 5:45 a.m. Outside in formation at 5:55. Then policed the area on Avenue B, Close order drill at 7:30. A lecture on first aid at 8, on what to do for snakebite. Cut a half-inch circle on victim and suck the poison out. Chow at 11:45 a.m. Mail call at 12:15 p.m., but did not receive any as usual. 2 p.m. to 12:30, a lecture on conduct on pass, of which the commander said he would get for the platoon in about 3 weeks. I can hardly wait to go back to Harrisburg and walk up 3rd Street in my uniform. Sunday, August 9th, 1942. Got out of bed at 6:45 a.m. You can sleep all day on Sunday if you wish. Ate breakfast at 7:45 a.m. and went down to the 13th Regiment to see Duff, to go to Richmond. It is a cloudy day and misting. Maybe the sun will come out so we can take some pictures. I've been in the Army 1 week and I still have no picture of me in uniform. We go north to get to Richmond, and how I would like to keep going north to Harrisburg, some 275 miles. 9:15 a.m. and Duff is in the latrine slapping some Vitalis on his civilian haircut, of which the company commander told him Saturday to get a GI. Well, we arrived in Richmond at 11:45 p.m. and got a streetcar to the business section. Saw the capital of the Confederacy, the governor's mansion, and went to see Footlights Serenade at the State Theater. 44 cents admission. There is no half price for soldiers in Richmond, Virginia, and it was matinee. Thursday, August 13th, 1942. Today I had my first drill with a Springfield rifle, and I thought I did all right for the first day, and most of the other soldiers had 2 days training. The thing feels like it weighs a ton the first time you walk with it for 5 miles. This afternoon we went out in the woods, just east of the camp, to pitch tents. It was the easiest day we had since I've been here. Coming home I got soaked clean through. It really poured down, and then we had to stand retreat in our wet fatigues. After Reveille, my buddy and I went down to the War Department Theater No. 1 and saw Abbott and Costello and Pardon My Sarong. 15 cents was admission. Then walked over to the service club, and a lady asked if we played bridge. Wednesday, August 26, 1942. At 6:20 a.m., the 3rd and 4th Squad, that includes me, were called out and marched to the parade grounds and set up sandbags to be used for resting the hand at the prone position for rifle practice. Saturday, August 29th, 1942. Last day of dry trigger practice. Tomorrow we go out in the range. Chow at 4:45 a.m. It's a 2-hour hike to the range with a light field pack. The first shot is going to be the best. 134 is a marksman, 168 is sharpshooter, and expert is a bull every time. We have been practicing the dry trigger now for 6 days, and do those slings almost kill your arm. I'm going home this weekend, September 6th and 7th. We are coming down in a friend's 1941 Ford. We'll be home 2 a.m. Sunday, and leave for camp 9 p.m. Sunday, if we get a bed check. It will be nice coming home through Washington, D.C. in uniform. Maybe I can walk up 3rd Street with a marksman's medal above my left pocket. Will my mom and dad be proud of me then? September 6th, 1942. Right after retreat this Saturday, we hopped a cab for Washington, D.C. It cost us $36, or $6 apiece. There were 6 in the taxi. We left Camp Lee around 6 p.m. and was in Washington at 9:30. We jumped out of the cab and walked swiftly into Union Station to get a 10 p.m. train for Harrisburg. First we went to the Traveler Aid booth. That is, we tried, for just before I got in front of the window, I slipped and was on the marble floor before I knew what happened, with my left wrist bent up under me. A little boy handed me my field jacket, and I thanked him. The kid had more sense than anybody there, and I would say there was 300 people in the station that Saturday night. From now on, I'm going to watch myself on a Saturday, for I believe it is really my bad luck day. Well, the first aid man at the station called the ambulance at the Walter Reed Hospital, and here I am. The date is now September 18th, 1942. Tomorrow will be 2 weeks that it happened. Oh yes, did I tell you what happened? Well, my left wrist was broken. In fact, it's still broken for that matter. The lieutenant ward officer said I would be relieved of my study for 6 weeks or longer. The operation was something. A major did the resetting of the bone, or bones. Whatever. They don't tell you very much here at the Army Medical Center. You just wait, and one day you will get either a CDD or a return to duty slip. A CDD is a discharge from the Army as physically unfit. My mom was down last Saturday, September 10th, 1942, and said she would bring Dad along the next time, which is the day after tomorrow or Sunday. I told her if I come up Saturday on a furlough, I would phone home, and they would not have to get ready to come down Sunday. But this is Friday, and I still have the original cast on my arm, and I wouldn't want to go home with this one anyhow. The thing weighs at least 5 pounds. As soon as they put a skin cast on the arm, I can get at least a 2-week furlough, or maybe longer. A sergeant who slept beside me here in Ward 34 has been home now for 3 days on a 30-day furlough. My first sergeant sent my toilet articles from Camp Lee, Virginia, and also a very nice letter telling me to get well quick. He also enclosed my sharpshooter's medal, which I won on the range just 3 days before the accident. September 18th, 1942. I feel as if when I do get out of this hospital, I will have to start all over again, especially on building up my physical strength, because I seem to get awful lazy these days. Tomorrow when the lieutenant comes down, I hope he will give me a slip to have the cast changed. If I soon don't get out of here, I will go nuts, or at least taken over the hill. I'm writing this part of the diary with a new pen, an Eversharp. It set me back $3.95, but retails for $5.95 outside, and as you can see, it writes fine. Just the thing for a book of this type. I sure do miss the gang back at Camp Lee, and when I do go back, they will all be gone, most of them in Baltimore at Halliburton Motor Base. Guess I'll be at least 3 months in seeing them again. We'll let you know what the lieutenant has to say tomorrow. Saturday, September 19th, 1942. Today at 1:45 p.m., Lieutenant Tanner of the Army Medical Center changed the 5-pound cast on my wrist and said I could apply for a furlough. Sunday, September 20th, 1942. Today at 9:30 a.m., Lieutenant Tanner gave me a slip to have another x-ray taken, to make sure it was okay to give me the furlough. Tomorrow I am going to apply for it. It will take at least 3 days for it to go through the red tape. Monday, September 21st, 1942. Lieutenant Tanner gave me his permission to apply for a 2-week furlough. I took the slip of paper over to Ward 11, and I leave for Harrisburg, Pennsylvania on Wednesday the 23rd, and return the 8th of October. I can just feel how fast those 17 days are going to go. Tuesday, September 22nd, 1942. Today I'm just laying around waiting for tomorrow to come, so I can go back to good old Harrisburg. Plan to get a cab at the gate and go to Union Station. Cost 35 cents. Just thinking what it will be like to walk up 3rd Street tomorrow afternoon. I can just see the people looking at me and thinking how young I am to be a soldier. And with a rifle medal, too. I'm going to see my aunts and uncles and show off my sharpshooter medal. Sunday, September 27th, 1942. Well, I've been home now since Wednesday on my 2-week furlough. And was it some sight to see the Capitol Dome when the train came over the bridge Thursday at 4:48 p.m. It is now Sunday, and I am waiting for next Sunday to come around. Met Duff at the station last night. He was in his ODs and had his belt that goes around his waist, on his shoulder and through the loop on the coat shoulder. He reminded me of an MP or a soldier who was trying to be different, but that's Duff and you can't do anything about it. He's just too thick-headed, but he's still a nice cousin. Just this morning, Sunday the 27th of September 1942, he came rushing in the front door and upstairs like he was going to kill somebody when he got a hold of them. Well, anyway, what I was going to say was, he was telling me how he wore his summer overseas cap with neither of the points showing. He would tuck them down into the cap and set it on his head. It looked like a sailor's till he was done with it. I disliked it very much. Got my letter from Ken yesterday, and he said if I would come to Savannah, he would pay my eats and hotel room. He is getting married on the 15th of October, and Esther, his bride-to-be, is giving him a 3-week honeymoon. I wonder what the soldiers think of him down there in Georgia. Wednesday, September 30th, 1942. Well, I went down to my ex-girlfriend's, if I can even call her ex-girlfriend, to see if the uniform made any difference. Did it, you're no doubt wondering? Man, that 20-year-old babe just sat there in her love seat and smiled at me the whole time I was there. How I would like to take that hunk of stuff to Camp Lee, Virginia. I mean, marry it. Saturday, October 3rd, 1942. Well, tomorrow I go back to Washington, D.C., but I don't have to report to the hospital until Thursday, so I'm going to see a few shows before going back. I'll stay at a Soldiers Club on 11th and 2nd Northwest Street, at 55 cents a night lodging, and meals 25 cents and 40 cents, and shows 22 cents. I'm going back with Duff. Monday, October 5th, 1942. Arrived in Washington, D.C. 20 minutes late on the train, and it was raining cats and dogs. Walked over to the Federal Recreation Room here in the Union Station, and waited until 5:45 p.m., until it slacked up, and walked up to the Soldiers, Sailors, and Marine Club. Sure did feel conspicuous walking up Mass Ave. Everybody seemed to stare intentionally at me. I guess it was just my inferiority complex coming out in me. The club is all right for the bed or bunk, but the meals are no good. Now that I'm back at the hospital, I don't see how I stood them. Listened to Lux Radio Theater that night on Club Radio. Tuesday, October 6th, 1942. Went downtown and took in 2 shows. Wake Island and Somewhere I'll Find You. Time I went, at 10 a.m., till time I came back from second show, was 4:45 p.m. Spent 44 cents for 7 hours of entertainment. Also, the stage show at Earl was very good. Went back and listened to the radio until 11 p.m. Wednesday, October 7th, 1942. This morning I went down again to the Luxor Columbia to see Orchestra Wives. Was enjoying the show. At about the middle, a young girl, about 17, sat down beside me and looked over at me about twice, and then started nudging me in the shoulder. At first I thought it was just her nerves, and didn't look her way, and then she dropped her right hand down on my left leg, and then I knew it wasn't her nerves. She was making a big play for me. So I reached over with my good hand and took hers in mine, and she squeezed it so hard I thought she was going to crush my fingers, and looked over at me and gave me a big smile, showing every tooth in her mouth. She had a hairdo like Margaret Sullivan of the movies, and her eyes blended into her face like they were built there. And her lips were cool and calm and seemed to say, "You are the man for me." You can figure out what happened for yourself. Thursday, October 8th, 1942. Saw Panama Hattie before coming back to the hospital. Turned in my khakis until next summer. And that night went up to the Red Cross building and saw Sergeant York over again. Friday, October 9th, 1942. Today we had line-up at hospital. Line-up is only bi-monthly, with about 10 officers sitting around looking at you when you come into the room. Maybe it was good I did come back in time for a line-up, for a major told our Lieutenant Tanner it was time to take the cast off and straighten my wrist. Lieutenant Tanner took the cast off and gave me a brace to keep my wrist straight. And now I can even move it up about 2 inches, and another 2 inches and it will be up as far as my right wrist. Monday I will get PT. Friday, October 16th, 1942. It has been a week now that my cast has been off my arm, and Lieutenant Tanner said I am doing very well. Just today he said, "Keep it up. Sure would like to get another furlough and go home, this time in my ODs and not looking like a wounded soldier." Sent Tuesday for my ODs at Camp Lee to First Sergeant McQuaid. Sunday, October 18th, 1942. Today at 9 a.m. we had a special inspection of Ward 39. When my time came, I walked up to the doctor, and Major Thompson looked my wrist over and told me to move it up and down, and then he held out his 2 forefingers and told me to grip them. He said I was okay for duty. I'm going to ask Lieutenant Tanner tomorrow for furlough. Friday, October 23rd, 1942. Asked Lieutenant Tanner Monday for furlough, but he just laughed and said, "That's what everybody wants who are going back to duty." Today I collected $8.40 in rationed money out of my furlough. Also called down to DP and secretary down there, and said I would leave for Lee in a few days. Going to try for a 24-hour pass tomorrow. October 26, 1942. Today I got my discharge from the hospital, but it is pouring down rain, and I mean raining, so I think I will stay at Walter Reed until tomorrow. Besides, there's a show at the Red Cross tonight anyhow. Now don't get me wrong, I'm no gold brick, but why should I go in this rain? Besides, I want to take some pictures downtown, and can't take them without sun. Waiting for the post office to get mail sorted so I can let Mom and Dad know I'm going back to Lee. Kinda sad to leave the hospital, and all the guys, although I won't miss them as much as I did when I left Lee.